俺特製モダン焼きの完成。
Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Anime with Alvin. This time we're going to be tackling the giant okonomiyaki from One Piece, a savory pancake-like dish that is filled to the brim with lots of goodies inside and is one of the most fun Japanese foods to make. One of its signature features is its crisscross of Kewpie mayo and sweet and tangy okonomiyaki sauce on top. The version in the show seems to take on inspiration from modan yaki or modern okonomiyaki, which involves noodles. Let's get started. For the okonomiyaki batter, we're going to start by mixing 2 2/3 cup of water with 4 teaspoons of kneading along with 3 1/4 cups of cake flour. Whisk well to combine, and this gets covered and chilled just to set to the side so that the gluten can relax and the batter can just become more homogeneous. We're also going to take 1 1/2 cup of katsuobushi or dried bonito flakes and grind them up using a mortar and pestle until they become a fine powder. In the show, Sanji specifies using a lemon mayo, so we're going to take the juice and zest of 2 lemons and combine them with 1 entire bottle of Kewpie mayo. Give that a stir and funnel that back into a squeeze bottle. This is important for the end. Now for the vegetables. I'm slicing up 1 onion, 4 green onions or scallions, and half the head of 1 cabbage. Cabbage is one of the most important parts of okonomiyaki for texture, flavor, and often makes up the majority of the final dish. Now to the stove. In the stove, we're going to add 2 cups of water and 1 packet of instant yakisoba noodles. We found this in a yakisoba kit from a local grocery store because it is difficult to just make noodles on your own, and this kit will do fine. Give that a cook for about 1 minute or as the package instructs, and take that out, making sure to drain of any excess water. I have here just a few blanched octopus tentacles that we separated and blanched for about 20 minutes in just some water with a little bit of salt. And in a large wok, I'm adding in 3 tablespoons of oil, the onions, and about half of the cabbage that we chopped earlier. Give that a stir fry with a couple pinches of salt, and in goes the octopus to cook as well. Once everybody's getting a little bit of color, toss in the noodles, and another element specified visually in the show also goes in. This is just some kombu that has been pre-soaked in water for 10 minutes off screen. In goes roughly 3 tablespoons of that. And now for the fun part, yakisoba sauce, a sweet and tangy sauce that you can also find at your local Japanese grocery store. Kind of eyeballing and giving a heavy glug here and there, adding a touch bit more oil, and giving that a nice stir. Once the noodles and everything is starting to get coated real nicely, in goes 1 green scallion's worth and a tablespoon of benishoga or red pickled ginger. This is something that is a little difficult to make, so we got this condiment at the local Japanese grocery store. A little extra sauce just for fun, give that a toss, and we are done with the noodle portion of our dish. In the show, Sanji's cooking opponent clearly makes an entire yakisoba dish, which then he steals completely to use as the base of his own dish. Quite genius. On to Sanji's portion of the battle. I'm lubricating a cast iron skillet with just a little bit of oil and a paper towel and ladling in approximately 1/3 cup of this okonomi batter that was rested from before. Give that a spread until it basically looks like a large crepe, and now we start to build. In first goes a sprinkle of our crushed bonito powder that we made earlier, a couple of chunks of blanched sliced octopus bits that just dance around the edges of the pancake, and tearing a little bit of kombu to match the show. On goes a heavy bed of our shredded lettuce that we hand cut earlier, and then an ingredient known as tenkatsu or tempura bits. I'm pretty sure this is just fried tempura batter. After a sprinkle of green onions, in goes a light scattering of just bean sprouts and this special ingredient, an ingredient that lends the okonomiyaki a nice savoriness according to online research that we did. The next part is my favorite, a couple of slices of thinly sliced pork belly, around 3 to 4 for this one, that just go right over the top. And to seal this together, just a couple of drips and streaks of that batter. We don't want to add too much here, but the goal is that once we hopefully flip it, that batter will harden and we'll seal this whole thing together. We let this cook for roughly 5 minutes on low heat, and then we attempt to loosen the edges and flip it. This is a little tricky, so I'm using a pizza peel to flip and slam it back down to where it came from. This one seems to be a little small. Sanji in the show seems to have taken up the whole entire screen with the size of his creation, so we will set this to the side as a snack and we will try again. Let's put that over there, and this time let's go with 1/2 cup of okonomiyaki batter. That way we can cover more surface area on the bottom. And we repeat bonito powder, kombu to fill in a couple of gaps, kind of like making a pizza. Some chopped up octopus, shredded cabbage, mounting it in an even larger pile, as that is what I recall from having had this in Japan a few times. Layering with tenkatsu, scallions, bean sprouts, the tororo kombu, and 6 slices of thinly sliced pork belly. Now is not the time to cheap out. Now is the time to go all in. And again, sealing the top with a little bit of batter just to cover the crevices and hopefully stick together the whole entire thing when flipped. This is looking at least twice the size of my previous one, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. Make sure to give the sides a release and not burn the edges of your pancake, and let's slide this back onto the pizza peel to serve as our tool for the day. I'm really glad we had this thing. 1, 2, 3, and boom. That's not bad at all. We let the other side cook for roughly 5 to 10 minutes because the pork belly does need to cook all the way through, and the cabbage does need some heat to be able to penetrate and wilt that down just a little bit. Once the pork is starting to crisp up and everything looks nice, we slide this back onto our pizza peel, and here you can clearly see how sad the other one is looking. It's sitting there like an old piece of bread because nobody wanted it. Now to assemble the full dish. Sanji, just like in the show, needs to steal his opponent's dish, so we are stealing the yakisoba that we made earlier, spreading it onto the cast iron, and searing that just for a little bit of heat and structure before attempting to slide the okonomiyaki back on top. After letting this settle, and cook for roughly another 3 minutes on low heat, we remove the whole thing once again with a little bit of difficulty as the noodles are not one solid mass yet, but we have still yet to fail. And now, on the bottom, we crack in about 5 eggs. The egg serves as a base for this pancake, but also as an adhesive to the loose noodle part. Once we slide that back on, good job Alvin, we let the egg cook and bind this through, and then again we slide this back off onto the pizza peel. With the help of Rachel, we were able to accomplish this rather difficult task, and we have probably slid this thing on and off about 10 times at this point. And now the most difficult part. We need to flip this entire thing on its head. Here you can see that we have clearly devised a foolproof method to make this work. Instead of flipping this onto the pan, why not flip the pan onto the peel? After a little bit of engineering, physics, and brute force, along with a touch of luck, we have now successfully flipped the okonomiyaki back onto its backside. And here you can see its exposed egg belly in all of its glory. Now, there's only one thing left to do: sauce. Take a heavy amount of the okonomiyaki sauce and brush that on with a paintbrush that is edible. This is probably my favorite part. Make sure to be a little bit generous because this stuff is what you're here for. And then with our squeeze bottle full of lemon Kewpie, a nice zigzag pattern of mayo right on top. And finally, to finish, a sprinkling of aonori, or I think that translates to green seaweed. This is a finely ground green color seaweed that serves as a very pretty garnish on top. Look at that. That looks pretty good to me if I do say so myself. I also like letting the sauces caramelize and sizzle a bit on the bottom. I think that adds extra flavor and makes sure that this entire thing is actually sealed together. I went back and rewatched the episode, and apparently he actually does this in a zigzag line. So we're going to add a little bit more Kewpie mayo in the other direction to create a crosshatch pattern, and to finish, a handful of katsuobushi on top. One of the fun parts about eating okonomiyaki is watching those bonito flakes dance in the wind currents of the heat coming off of the thing. But I present to you our version of the giant okonomiyaki, or modanyaki, from One Piece, Sanji style. I've been able to have okonomiyaki a few times in my life, luckily, and I'm curious to how this compares. So let's cut this into quarters, get a nice little cross section going, and I gotta say, it is pretty good. It is literally like eating a stir-fried noodle dish with this savory, sweet, salty, tangy pancake that has egg, pork, cabbage. It's just a bunch of stuff. And I think that's the best part. It doesn't really taste like one thing in specific, but you can't really nail everything that went in there. And in the end, you get so confused, you just can't do anything besides sit back and enjoy more. So that is exactly what me and the rest of the crew in the studio are going to do.